The opinions expressed on this podcast by the host are solely the host's own opinions. The hosts do not represent the opinions of the producers of this program, who bear no responsibility or liability for the program's content. The purpose of this podcast is intended to inform its listeners about financial planning and investment issues for qualified individuals and investors. The hosts are receiving no compensation in connection with this podcast. Many of the topics and opinions discussed may be of a personal nature, and some people may disagree or find opinions expressed on this program objectionable. Nothing on this podcast should be construed as investment advice or an offer to invest.
Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Financial Freedom Emergency Room podcast. And with me, as usual, is Thomas Black, MD, co-founder in Poly Capital. How are you, Tom?
Doing fantastic. How's everybody doing today?
I am good, and by golly, we have a great show today.
As always.
As always.
As always. Tim, why don't you introduce our guest for today?
I will. Like to introduce Dr. Jeff Beers.
Howdy, howdy.
Jeff, how are you?
Doing real well. How are you?
I'm good. And Jason Lebwohl, MD.
Good morning.
Softy.
Sorry, Lebwohl. Excuse me.
There we go. Oh, God, we just went over this.
We did.
All right. Well, boys, thank you very much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. And as always, we're just going to do kind of a banter back and forth. And what we're about is creating financial freedom for not only physicians, but individuals in high-stress environments, and taking high salaries and translating that to high net worth. So I hope you guys have a good time in the show today, and we'll kind of kick it off.
Thanks for having us.
Well, great. So you gentlemen run a fairly successful freestanding emergency department group in Texas. And what I'd like to do is just talk to us a little bit about the evolution, where you guys were, let's say, and we've known each other for several years, at least tangibly, we'll say that. Where were you guys in your career and kind of right around where this took place? Like, take us back about 5-6 years and what your mind was.
Sorry, I didn't want to really go back there.
Oh, you didn't? Well, shit. I mean, we can.
No.
Okay.
Can we turn this off?
Yeah, right.
So
how about talk to me about your state of mind? How about that? Let's not go business then.
No, it's okay. Well, we both worked for a larger ER group, one of the pioneers in freestanding emergency medicine. They had developed ERs in several cities in the state, and there were a lot of learning lessons and mistakes made, and things were not going in the direction that we necessarily wanted it to go. When the opportunity to start up the new group, which is Hospitality Health ER, little plug.
There you go.
But when that opportunity arose, it sort of seemed like a good side project initially for us to just kind of have a little extra anchor into something else besides the main ship. And as it turned out, to be blunt, the main ship sank.
Right. And
we jumped off just in time.
So you had a dinghy
to be able to start up something on our own with a group of partners that we enjoyed working with. And the side project turned into a full-time job for us, and it evolved from, we'll just do a little part and it'll be nothing, to this all-encompassing, entity that it is now for us.
So safe to say it was kind of started as a passion and something that you really didn't anticipate the runway that you had.
No, we didn't expect the growth, and we didn't expect it to turn into a full-time job when we first did it.
And how long ago was that?
Almost 4 years now.
Yeah, we started kind of talking about it, I guess, the end of 2014.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So you've seen a fairly expansive growth period in that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We started with one. We now have three.
So how has that, and Jeff, you can answer this too, how has that changed your practice? Like, has it changed it for the better? I mean, family life, how do you, I mean, it must have curtailed, from clinical practice into, evolving of, running a fairly large group now.
Right. So first of all, the benefit of being in the freestanding environment was immaculate in the way it is initially. So you get out of the hospital, you're out from underneath the oppressive CEO type perspectives and big hospital mentality, and able to create an environment that patients enjoy, and then go from that to starting it out on your own, where you're able to start from grass up and make it exactly the way you want it to be. You can get the nurses, you can get the doctors, you can get everybody to do what you envision emergency medicine to be for the patients.
Gotcha.
And that opportunity was just too hard to pass up.
Well, I get it.
You have to be able to take what you have and run with it and diversify and try to, expand out your possibilities.
Sure. Gotcha. Suffice to say, it's changed you personally too.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How so? Come on, you got to give me something.
Personally, I feel like
so I would say
I'm doing a lot more admin stuff than I ever had been doing before.
So that's what I'm getting at.
Right.
I mean, nights more or less sleep. I mean, you're a business owner now, so it changes it's a different mentality, right?
Well, it's definitely different. I find that I never understood why some of our directors historically were always working weekends and nights, but now I understand why they work night shifts and we gravitate towards night shifts and weekends, which is not necessarily good for the balance, but you fall behind during the week on all the administrative load. I think overall we probably work fewer true overnights than we were as a full-time practicing ER physician, but the amount of hours we put in is definitely more overall.
The biggest thing being an ER doc is that I went into ER because I liked helping people, but you didn't have to carry a pager. When you left the ER, you left the ER.
Yeah.
Whereas now, as an admin type guy,
you never leave.
And people are calling you at all hours, and it's nonstop on that side of things. So, of course, I think that's the way it is with you take directorship jobs.
So. Well, no, exactly, and I mean, even in my position in a regional directorship, taking a lot of that. I mean, Tim's seen kind of the evolution of that, but it's a different stress, right? It's a totally different stress.
It's a different stress, and there's a challenge to it that's new and different still. So it's certainly still relatively new, and so there's an excitement to it that doesn't come after being just an ER doctor for 10 years. Just an ER doctor. Just being an attending for 10 years, although I had director experience and other things before, but when it's your own and when you're running the business side of it, it's totally different.
Gotcha.
What was the big, you talked about 2014. What was the big aha where you both looked at each other and kind of had this moment where you said, I think we can do this together better? And you see where it's going to go and what the runway is.
Jason's starting to get a little uncomfortable.
He's itching over there.
No, I often go back and think, how did that exactly occur, and how we've talked about it, how did it exactly, we try and recreate the initial first conversation of when Jeff and I first said, okay, can we do this together? And I couldn't for the life of you,
Thank
really
you for offering me up there though, but
yes, you first. But I can't remember what exactly happened or what went through my mind. I just remember thinking, okay, I'm going to call Jeff because he seems like that's the right person to work with. And
it's got to be fun too. You never want to get into a situation where you don't like who you're working with, to some degree, because you're going to be working hard. You want somebody to have your
but
back too.
We've done, I think, exceptionally well together because we're not exactly alike.
Each other's skill set.
There are some views that we look at differently on certain things, for sure.
So we're going to come back to this segue because I think you brought up a really good point, and Jeff's starting to laugh uncomfortably.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that what's interesting is
where he looks white, I look black.
No, but it is funny. When we first started, I had, I think I was the bad cop and you were the good cop when we first started.
Yeah.
And then we've sort of switched roles in many ways over the last couple years. And now we're trying to switch back because I've realized I don't like being the good cop.
Really? It's fair.
We have that same dynamic.
We kind of do.
It's great.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, apparently it's great. I'm always a good cop. So, what do you see is the runway? And tell me, and I don't want to go into, specifics about operations and things like that, of course, but when you look at where you want to be, 5-10 years down the line, where do you see the evolution of everything going in your business? Is that something you feel comfortable talking about? Or?
Yeah, and I think the genesis of that question was, is this what you guys have decided to do, jumping off the cliff? Is it to improve your quality of life? Was that kind of thinking longer down the road? Now, you might be in the trenches now, but if you have 5, 10, 15, 30 of these things, or whatever the number is, was there, when you thought about it, thinking forward, that this is going to improve the back half of my life? Is that why you did it? Or was it just, hey, let's just do this?
No, without a doubt. There's always been a goal to, retire early.
Right.
Because I didn't want to retire when I'm 65 and never done anything fun and sit at home and not know what to do with myself.
Sure.
So, every step I've taken through medicine has always been to immediately try to find some way to get
out of it. You bring up a great point. I say this quite a bit. In emergency medicine in particular, we've had a lot of different personalities and folks on the show, and we've been on a lot of podcasts. It's funny about EM is the second we all finish training, we start looking for another thing to do. And it really, there's about 90% of us that just do that. It's like, oh, wow, I spent 12 years doing this. What's next?
Exactly.
It's a very goal-oriented type thing, and it's not unusual at all. And I think that's okay, because I think most of us really enjoy practicing, but we want to do it limited. We don't want to be that guy that's out there 65, 70 years old, and we all know those type people because of finances or because of any number of things. So I think it's a calculated thing for you.
Yeah, I think we all get out and work full time and realize this is fun, but I can't do this for 30 years.
Right.
Or I don't want to do this for 30 years.
It does not. The practice does not bode to you doing well.
No. I think the more the higher number of patients you see, and regardless of specialty, is we only get so many, so 80,000 people to contact, whether you're a family practice, whether you're an orthopedic surgeon. Once you blow through those, I think there's just a finite amount of time that you can continue doing that. So for me specifically, it's the same exact way.
So Jeff, you said, it was obviously, when you think about it, for your quality of life down the road, maybe not today because you're working nights and weekends. Jason was kind of looking, he's squinting a little bit. I'm not sure he shares the same opinion, maybe so.
I mean, honestly, you asked, the way you had framed the original question was, what were you thinking when we started hospitality and precision emergency physicians? I was not thinking about that. I was thinking about saving my
life,
my mind from a sinking ship, and what do I do next? And
so it was more self-preservation than future-oriented.
Yeah, and I would say that Jeff has played a really big role in helping to adjust my mindset towards thinking about that. I had the same goals of retiring early and things like that, but I had not thought it through outside of just the usual, I'm going to just save some money kind of idea.
Right.
And, that's why I think my transformation over the last 4 years has been really interesting to coincide with starting to interact with you and everything else. It all happened at the same time.
Really? Okay. So it started off truly as more of a self.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was just it was a crutch to put on in case this big group that I'm with doesn't go where I want it to go.
Right.
This is I have a soft landing here.
Sure.
And it's developed into such more, but
when I was definitely the person that pushed him from that little part in his mind to this is where we've got to go. This is not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
We have to go and change the way we're practicing and go into something special where we're controlling every bit
which
of it.
Which is super interesting. Do you think that, and you sound like you're ahead of the game, Jeff, so
well, it's just because I was smaller in it, so I could see a bigger picture.
Makes sense. So I guess where the biggest changes that I made, and I was going through the same evolution right around that time frame, maybe a year before, where it was a mindset change. It was nothing more than shifting how I viewed the world and viewed finances. And that took my net worth from a very bleak number and looking down the road like you, thinking, I'm saving $52,000 a year. How am I going to do this? It's going to be 20 years before I have $1 million. It changed that IRA mentality, and what it did, it flipped to a more business owner. I've got to take responsibility for myself. And as soon as that happened, bam, multiple 7 figures, just like that. And it wasn't any more difficult, right? It was about taking control of it and realizing that.
I don't know about difficulty. It certainly has been more interesting,
Right.
more dynamic, more entertaining.
Right. Well, and there you go.
for all
that's,
those reasons.
But that's a hell of a lot more
And maybe
fun.
more
than
difficult.
just
satisfying,
going
sure.
and
More
earning somebody else.
satisfying.
Satisfying, and you're not working
And-
for somebody else.
And
Once you
maybe
realize you have control.
certainly more difficult in that the responsibilities are there. I mean,
Right.
I remember the first time we had we went down this pathway, and all of a sudden, okay, well, we're going to create our own staffing company, which was not the original plan, and,
Right.
and Jeff kind of really pushed us down that pathway.
Right.
But the first round of payroll was really
Well,
interesting.
I bet it was painful. How did, I mean, the A&R takes, what, 6 months or so to
just
log up?
being-
So, yeah.
I mean, without going into the specifics, but all of a sudden paying for an entire ER's worth of ER doctor salary was like,
Yeah.
okay, that's eye-opening.
That's a real deal.
And
You start saying, yeah,
But-
and then
but-
they ask you for more money. Like,
but-
can you get a raise? You're like, whoa, that's a direct side. Like, you don't understand the budget here, dude.
I can show you a text from about an hour ago.
I know.
You should see it.
At least twice a week I get that, so it's
Yeah.
not unusual. Like, well, how about why don't you guys try and own something for once and see how the flip side,
Start
it's not
it up.
easy. Yeah, so it's tough,
You can read all the contracts and deal with all the lawyers.
right?
And, yeah.
And it definitely.
I'll
gives
go
you
back to working
appreciation.
ER. No way.
It gives you an appreciation from that director side and what a
Yeah.
true director side will be.
Yeah.
It really does. So it's a good thing, and it's good to have that experience to be able to pull from.
And it's a key, just like everything, is learn from your own past mistakes and learn from the people around you's past
Right.
mistakes.
Super important.
Failure to do that leads to
So if you were to flash back 4 years ago, you couldn't imagine yourself sitting here today, right? On a podcast. And
no.
so if
No.
you were to flash forward 4 years from now, what's it look like? What's your business look like? What are you guys doing?
We're on a beach.
I like it.
And
I'm flying.
Together?
there's definitely
Not rubbing lotion on the back or anything, right?
preferably with family around.
Yeah.
Very good.
And no, I don't know where 4 years will bring us. I'm excited for the different potential possibilities that could exist. I could see doing the same thing we're doing now, which is purposely growing slowly and making sure that we
Right.
take steps carefully. I could see a bunch of drastic changes because the industry we have chosen is
Is
an
very
industry
dynamic, for
that
sure.
is new and very dynamic and on a tightrope with regards to
Right.
outside
So
influences.
along those lines, how do you mitigate and plan for that? Is it thrown out? I mean, there's got to be some thought now, personally and professionally, because I think there's two different questions there, right? I mean, professionally is harder probably to navigate because you don't know what roads you're gonna have to take, right? So, and I think you probably know, just from knowing you a little bit more, you've probably got a better sense in 4 years where you're gonna be.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely options for growth
Yeah.
in the current industry. I think that the freestanding market has been proven across the country, so there's got to be more
Right.
growth and all that. And so it's certainly administrative work through all that, through billing and software, and just continue to work as an ER doc. But then my goal has always been to pull whatever I've made out of that to create a family environment that I can
Sure.
sustain long term.
Okay.
And be a dad and husband, that type of
Yeah.
deal.
Do you find that working less in the bigger group environment, I mean, even though you're working nights and weekends, do you get more quality time?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, you get. I mean, the benefit of the small group is that the docs.
Right.
You know who's on. You know what's going on, and it's a much better environment than being
Sure.
squashed under some big huge monstrosity.
And I can't stress that enough, even to all our listeners that listen and to people that kind of follow Tim and I, that it's really about owning it, and it doesn't matter what you own. It's about owning your own destiny and choosing that path, whether that's in emergency medicine, whether it's commercial real estate, whether it's any number of things that you choose. Be a business owner and own it, because that's really where not only does a passion kind of light a fire, but the most unhappy doctors that I know are the ones that are W-2 employees, and they've been doing this for decades,
Right.
and they have no voice, whether they choose not to have a voice in a group or it's thrust upon them.
Well, yeah, no voice, but also no options.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. There's a pathway, and they've chosen to go down that pathway, and they have no choice at that point to just stay on the pathway until they've somehow collected their number.
Yeah,
And-
but
and
even then, you
that,
always
I
have a
think,
choice,
leads
right?
to-
We all bailed. I mean, I bailed.
Yeah,
I was petrified. I mean, I was absolutely petrified when I resigned my partnership because I knew that I could not see my future anymore. I didn't know where I was going.
Yeah.
And luckily I had a support system and my wife that said, absolutely, you pack up, you make the call, and you say, guys, you sit down with the managing partners and say, hey, sorry, and hopefully you end up landing in the same place.
Well, I've never been squashed or felt like I could sit underneath a specific number.
Right.
So if I was working for a group for a W-2 to collect this amount of money, and that's what I knew it was going to be to be able to retire,
Right.
I can't handle that.
Right.
I need to be able to explore out and find
Right.
out new options and be able to blow up that number into something bigger.
Right.
It can't be something that just I plan on. We call
Just do
ER
it.
doctors gypsies because we just
Well,
we
we're
have
nomadic,
ADHD
right? Yeah.
really bad and
Right.
we just jump around and
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know.
Well, what were we talking about?
Exactly.
So, 4 years from now, what are we doing? It could be anything.
Right.
It really could be anything. So you show me opportunity, I'm going to jump on it.
Right. Well, that's fantastic. That's an open mind. That's the type of mindset you need.
So thinking about the young men and women coming out of the residency, give them some advice, right? I think that, when, and
I think we're
boy, is that
consistent on all three of us.
listen, that's a tough question. My daughter wanted to go into medicine and my brother's been talking her out of it forever. And so, when you think you want to go into medicine, right, you're on top of the world. There's nothing better than being a doctor. But obviously, this realization sets in at some point. So for those folks that are coming out and starting to give them some advice, what path they should take and what you've learned and what you would do differently.
You can be honest. It's okay.
Yeah. The show's for all kinds of people.
I don't have any other way, usually. My advice, well, on an outside of the job advice is, from personal mistakes, is to be really wary and careful of the lifestyle you choose.
Right.
Because you don't want to end up with 3 car payments and
Golden handcuffs.
and all kinds of
There you
stuff,
go.
and being responsible for such a monthly turnover in cash. What comes in is going right out again.
Right.
And that's mistakes that I made certainly in the early part of my career, especially with the additional income that was coming in from a business side of medicine.
Well, you get to that I deserve it mentality, right?
I don't think it was about deserve. It was about thinking that it's always going to be there.
Okay.
And that's it. It's taking it for granted, not necessarily because I deserved it, but just it's there. And because I'm making X is going
It's
to happen
always
next
gonna be
year,
there,
and
right.
X is going to happen the year after. But X isn't always there. And so I think, mindful of your personal debt and stuff was a lesson that I learned, in many ways the hard way.
Yeah. Good lesson.
Especially if you're on the business side of things.
Right.
It's one thing to talk about using loans and leverage to gain something and to help with a property or a piece of real estate or something that's going to make you money. It's another thing to blow it on something that's not going to make
That's a
you
very
money.
Just
good
appreciate
asset and liability, right? Assets and liabilities. So that's
Yeah.
really important.
Jeff?
Ooh, look at that.
Are you
being
guys
a-
related?
I don't know. No.
You guys think alike?
relations.
You kind of look alike.
I'm much more attractive.
Well, I'm the first doctor in my family. So, my dad was an engineer, my mom was an engineer, and they said, don't be engineers.
Really?
So, mainly because during that time, all of the manufacturing for the U.S. was going to China.
Right.
So their jobs are just disappearing.
Okay.
And so electrical, mechanical engineering, that type of stuff. And so, so I was like, I'll be a doctor. And, being a doctor opens up a lot of possibilities. You can do a lot more stuff than you ever anticipating being able to do with the income that you're able to generate. And going through stuff like, things like, making a budget and stuff like that early on really helps you get your debt under control.
Yeah.
And then setting goals for your life, because you can create and do a lot of those goals with the amount of money you can make as
Sure.
a doc. So, having those goals and keeping your mind and eye on the prize, you can get those things done. So, that was one of the best things about trying to decide to be a doctor. Now, would I tell, my daughter, does she want to be a
that
doctor?
was my next question. So would you say, she says, Dad, I want to go to med school. What is the first thing you say other than take a deep breath?
Yeah.
Say yeah?
I mean, I think it's okay to be a doctor. You just have to have the ability to have a balance and
Right.
find, and keep goals and plan.
Somehow,
And-
Tom, you didn't quite take that same.
No. I think for me, when I tell people, I think personally, you have to know the end point in mind. And
Well,
I
one of
think
the-
having
But that's so
a
hard
skewed
to
res-
tell the
it's-
average 20-something-year-old person.
It's almost impossible, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't fathom what your
I would
life is
say
going to be like
that
coming
I
in.
would say that if that sounds good to you, then
Right.
that sounds good to
Well,
me. With the understanding
Make
that
sure you
can
know.
always do whatever you want, whenever
Right.
you want, and you can always switch.
Right.
And if you want to go to med school and be a physician for 50 years, great. If you want to go to med school and 12 years from now go to business school or law school, or
Right.
you want to run for Congress,
Right.
I would tell my
Well,
daughter she can do.
and that's
whatever she
one of the
wants.
biggest things that I tell them to do. When I have the 18-year-old kid that's in the ER asking me, hey, I want to be a doctor. What do you recommend? I say, you have to take some finance classes
Right.
in college. You can't, they didn't teach us any of this
No.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
we didn't know anything about
that's
business.
great
point.
Doctors are the worst business people.
That's a
No.
downfall.
Because you have money
Yep.
and you think
Don't
you know
anything.
everything.
Right, and that is, well, it's a great point,
Yeah.
yes. And thinking you know everything, and that's one of the things we talk about a lot is you're trained independently, right? We're trained to analyze literature, to look and make a decision, and it's beaten into you. When it comes to finances and wealth, it's a team sport, right? You have to be able to be knowledgeable and who to leverage and who not to, and that can be really difficult. So it's a great point. I tell my kids, if you want to be a doctor, great. I think it gives, like you said, it gives a lot of opportunities and things, but there's two classes, not only personal finance, but accounting, because so many people can't read a P&L and can't look at it in a general ledger and really understand what's going on, and that's really important for a doctor to do, and probably one of the penultimate reasons why we're kind of losing that autonomy in private equity and things like that,
Yeah,
coming in
exactly.
invading, because they're
Exactly.
leveraging our
Medicine
time.
in general has lost because physicians in general have no business sense
Right,
whatsoever.
right. And so somebody can come in and leverage that ability, and to some extent, we've let it happen. So, and it's a sad thing, and who knows if the pendulum will swing eventually back, but it's going to be quite a while. It's going to get worse before it gets better.
I don't know. Maybe we can change the next generation.
It's possible.
Let's
All
do
right.
it.
Yeah, let's do it. So before we wrap up, Jeff, I understand you're a pilot,
I am a pilot, yeah.
and I also understand that you're a fan of Cirrus aircraft.
I am, yes. Well,
I love the
I have a Cirrus aircraft, yes.
And so, do they train you like when you pull the parachute?
Oh, shit, parachute?
Like a buddy of mine's the distributor, whatever you call
Uh-huh.
those things, up in Wisconsin where I live, and so he's taken me up. They're phenomenal planes, super fast, very cool. But I always wondered, like, at what point
Do you
are
say,
you like,
okay,
oh, it's time to pull the ripcord?
So, yes, we do with simulator training, a lot like what's going on in medicine. There's tons of simulator training in aviation.
Right.
And when we got the plane, I brought my wife with me, and we both went through the parachute pull scenarios.
Does
through
she
all
have a
this.
license too?
No, like this. So
She has
this
her
is part.
license to
She has a license to pull a
License
parachute.
to pull.
License? Oh, wait, not yet.
Pull.
No, not yet. Oh, that's awesome.
So that way then, because it's a one pilot thing, and so having somebody in the airplane that knows how to get it to the ground safely
Sure.
and keeps everybody alive is awesome.
What was scarier, flying that plane for the first time, or your first arrest, resuscitation in the ED?
Definitely the arrest in the ER.
Really?
Yeah.
Even though
Yeah.
I guess the first one. So first
Yeah.
one on your own.
First one on my own was pretty
Pretty intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But by the time you get to do it on your own,
Yeah.
you've done it like thousands of times with somebody else in the seat, but
Yeah.
you're just doing it by memory.
So I got my pilot's
And
license.
and the thing
and,
is that it's so like the same.
yeah,
Every
Yeah.
procedure is
It
exactly
well, you're right.
the same.
So there's no variability,
You
but
know,
that's still
so-
that first time you take off and you realize there's nobody else in the airplane with you,
Right.
and it's either you land this thing,
Right.
one way or
Right.
another. That
Yeah.
is a extremely terrifying moment for me when I did it, and I was flying a little tail dragger, and the weight changes when you got a 200-pound guy gets
Big
out.
big change.
And you're
Big
like,
change.
Whoa, it's a little
all
more
of a sudden-
responsive. Yes.
All of a sudden it gets off the ground really
Yeah,
fast.
yeah, exactly. And so you're just, okay, I guess we're just gonna go ahead and land this thing. So, very good, very good.
So, Jason, you opened with a little bit of plug coming into the show. You guys want to plug anything that you're doing?
What's
or-
the easiest
Yeah,
way
hit
to,
it,
for people to
hit
get in
it.
touch with
Right.
you? And
If they want to ask you questions, talk to you, go for a flight.
Well, we our staffing company is Precision Emergency Physicians.
.com?
No, I don't even think we have a website.
Don't really have a
Fair
website.
enough.
Yeah,
fully staffed right now?
we are fully staffed.
Are you always looking?
But we are
Always
always
looking.
looking.
There's the good director right there. There's the good. You're always looking.
Certainly looking, actively recruiting at least another nurse practitioner or PA. So
Okay.
if anybody wants to work, we have.
Fantastic.
We, along with our partners, operate Hospitality Health ER, which has 3 locations: Longview, Texas; Tyler, Texas; and Galveston, Texas.
Galveston.
Galveston just opened a couple months ago. We're really
Yeah.
excited to be right on the seawall.
Where are you in relation to Seawall for all those UTMB grads out there?
42nd and Seawall.
It's right by the
Hard to
Academy?
miss.
Right by
Yeah.
the
Right,
Academy?
right, Academy.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Memories.
Yeah.
12 years
You're
ago.
like
I'm still
Google
going
Maps.
strong. That's right.
So certainly anybody's welcome to reach out to us.
All right.
And I'll give a quick shout out to my wife Casey and my daughter Layla and my son Zach.
Nice.
Perfect.
Jeff?
Certainly, the best way to get a hold of us is just by email or our cell phones.
All right.
So
Don't give your cell phone out on this.
Yeah.
Email would be better.
Email's fine.
Okay.
We'll just put
beersmd@gmail.com.
Or Tim's cell phone.
Right.
You can
Very
you can
good.
find us on Facebook or find me on Facebook. This-
Yes, I have no
This guy's
social media
not on.
presence. Sorry,
So-
my
You're
bad.
lucky, man. You're lucky, man.
Smart
by
guy.
design. By design. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for taking time out today. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
coming
Appreciate
out.
it.
Had a blast.
Yeah, it was nice.
All right, guys. Thanks.
And that's a wrap. If anybody'd like to get a hold of us, as usual, it's Tim at Napali Cap or Thomas at Napali Cap, NAPALICAP.com.
Thank you very much.
Have a great week.
You as well.
We're out.